Is my headroom okay?
Let me see.
At least
You've got
on
a
the
little more than you
Skype
need.
window, you're off center and you got a lot of headroom there.
Well, I'm trying to be off center because I've got to stay away from this room over here.
Oh, yeah.
Headroom, it's better. It's definitely better.
Okay, that's better?
Yep.
Alrighty. Of course, we'll edit this all out if we're, before
we'll take
this
it out.
goes
No,
live.
no, we won't.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this is our pre-production meeting for this week's episodes of Right Angle at BillWhittle.com, made possible in part by a grant from the John and Nancy McDonald Foundation. I just made those people up. There's no grant except from you, made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, and we thank you for that. This is the time when we get together for you new members and talk about what we're going to shoot in tomorrow's episodes. And we do our recording sessions on Tuesday about this. And this week, Bill Whittle himself, the eponymous website guy, is actually hosting the members-only and regular episodes. So Bill will give you the courtesy of going first.
Thank you very much. Strangely enough, it's going to be a celebrity double feature for me this week. Yeah.
Ooh, fun.
For my public show, I want to talk about Adam West, who you guys you're a little too young to really appreciate him, I think. I talk a lot about Star Trek and Lost in Space and stuff, but it was Batman that was my show. I mean, Batman, I thought it was real. I didn't think it was a joke at all. I didn't get anything particularly funny out of it. And so I got to enjoy it on one level as a little kid. I was probably 6, 7 years old. And I used to go stand out on the street in my Batman outfit right on the corner of our house, with my cape blowing in the wind and my hands on my hips, protecting the driveway. And so you get the whole thing when you're a kid, but actually the comic genius of the guy really, and the writers too. To some degree, camping things out really did a fair amount of damage, but looking back on some of the clips just in the last day or two, I realize how much of just how fundamentally moral he was and the show was, his character. I don't think he was quite that moral in real life. I just 20 minutes ago read
Talking about the orgy story?
Adam West and Frank Gorshin got thrown out of an orgy because they couldn't drop character. I just think that's just perfect.
And the Riddler at an orgy.
Add that to the list of things I didn't want to know.
I don't care. It makes him even better for me. I think the guy was on some level pretty barking mad. He never quite got over it. My understanding is that in 1989, when they were doing the first real Batman reboot with
Michael Keaton,
yeah, that Adam West really thought he was in contention for the role and really thought he should have gotten it.
Oh, wow.
That may or may not be true. But the point I'm trying to make is, really the ultimate point I think is, on one point is just there's a couple lines where he walks in the room and he goes, "Criminals," it's just so revolting to him, and it made it revolting to me, and it's like, that's okay, citizen, and all of that. And then there's all the stuff that's not even, it's certainly not snark, it's not even sarcasm or nuance. It's just very clever self-mockery. And I think my favorite is they're at a party, Batman and Robin, and they want to slip out. And so he says something like, all right, Robin, let's leave as inconspicuously as we can through the window. And I just, it's little things like that. The announcer always referred to the house as Stately Wayne Manor.
That's right.
And there was an episode where they're in the Batcave, and there's a picture of Bruce Wayne's house, and below that it says Stately Wayne Manor on the caption. Yeah. It changed my life. It really did. It made me. As a big influence on me. I thought he was a remarkable guy. And, of course, he did the whole Family Guy second iteration, which I don't particularly care to get into.
Bill, what's amazing to me is I think that some of that sarcasm and some of that, subtle humor, so to speak, was actually done by probably Hollywood writers who thought they were sticking it to the man. But it had the opposite effect of what they intended, just like Archie Bunker's character on All in the Family was supposed to be a mockery of anybody who could have those kind of conservative views, and turned out that the guy was beloved by countless millions. I think what's phenomenal to me about the whole Adam West phenomenon, I guess, phenomenon, is that the show only lasted for 2 years. It was like 1966 to 1968, but
Really?
yes, at its height,
But they shot
they
two
were
a
doing
week.
2 episodes a week.
Yeah.
It was so stinking popular, and then it just went off a cliff. And I blame hippies.
I blame,
hippies
I blame
indeed.
Bad
You
Girl.
know, Bill, you said I'm too young for it, but you know what? I have to disagree. I was born a couple of years after the show ended, or a year after the show ended. But every day I would come home from kindergarten. This was the days before cable, so we had like 5 channels to choose from. And one of our 2 local independent stations showed in a row every weekday afternoon Batman, the Munsters, and Ultraman. And I sat down
come
and I
on.
watched all 3 in a row, Monday through Friday.
Absolutely.
Every day of the year.
Throw in a Gilligan's Island and you're all the way
Oh,
home,
yeah.
man. Yeah, so I don't usually talk much about celebrities or people passing, but in this case I really want to, and I think there is a bit of a political message in there. It wasn't cynical at all. The writers may have been having fun with how square he was, but he wasn't. He wasn't
Yes.
commenting on it. Adam West played it to the degree that a guy in a purple cowl can play something seriously. He played the decency of Batman straight up.
Decency is the word.
Yeah, that's what he was. And there are just so many cases where he's just such a good citizen and he's just so proud of it.
Yeah, I don't
know.
recall laughing at the little insider snarky jokes. I don't recall that at all as a kid. I recall watching it was like, it's Batman, man.
It's Batman, yeah. But looking back at it as an adult, I realize, okay, there's a bunch of they're portraying him as this square, but they're not mocking him, and he's certainly not allowing himself to be mocked. It's like he in some level was America to me. He was like the ideal citizen. He was just very civic minded, and and just I don't know.
He didn't
Some
have to
days
be
you just-
tortured, and
No.
you can't call somebody square after you've seen them dance the Batusi.
I was going to close with the Batusi.
Oh, no,
but how
I
do
took it
no,
away
no, no,
from
it's,
you.
No,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no, it's all right. I'll save it for tomorrow.
Okay.
But you can't be. There was Adam West and Batman were written to be such squares, but they became probably the most popular people in the pop culture for 2 or 3 years, and everybody wanted to be on that show, and everybody was on the show.
Yeah.
There were so many people who were either Bat villains or on the walk up the side of the building, the window would open and it'd be Sammy Davis Jr. and it'd be somebody else, So I don't know. I was sad to hear the news, and he just meant a lot to me, so I want to talk about that.
Awesome. So that's your regular episode.
That's the regular episode. The members only episode is also a celebrity thing. I just thought it was really interesting. Did you guys hear about the Steve Harvey memo not too long ago? Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh, about no direct eye contact and everything. And he on TV, he's like the warm, giving, generous guy. And apparently to his
Well,
staff,
no,
he's
that's
Donna Summer.
That's not where I'm going
First Adam
with this.
West in an orgy, and now Steve won't make
No,
eye
no,
contact.
I'm not. That's not where I'm going at all.
No, Diana
he
Ross,
did
not
issue-
Donna Summer. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Sorry,
besmirch
no worries.
the great disco queen.
He issued a memo, and basically the memo to the staff was, listen, I've said this again and again and again, so now I'm going to have to say it so that you can understand me. I do not want people coming into my dressing room. I do not want to be ambushed in the hallway. I do not want to be asked for autographs on the way to the car, blah, 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 on and on and on. And it's relatively severe. It's not crazy nuts, but it's severe. But looking at it, it doesn't seem to me to be too unreasonable. It's not like the J-Lo thing where she would have a contract where before she walks into the building, no one's allowed to look at her. These are things that this guy in the course of his day are finding her annoying, and people are hassling him, and he wants to get to work. So I was with him on that, but that's not what interests me. What interests me is they gave his memo to a guy who's basically like the human resource expert on millennials. And it went from, listen, folks, I don't want to have to say this again, so listen carefully. One of these kind of things. The guy, the millennial HR guy, wrote it. And so now the first line is, first of all, I'd just like to say how excited I am about the work we've been doing on season 4 and how jazzed we are about moving forward as a team. Honest to God, something almost exactly like that. And then you go through and you read this thing and you realize 2 things that are very important. Number 1, it doesn't tell you what the problem is. And number 2, it doesn't tell you the importance of it. It's just pablum. And the thing I find interesting about that is that this guy is basically selling himself as a consultant. I'm sure he's making a lot of money to businesses to how to speak to millennials. And it's a great example of how speaking to millennials consists of not saying anything other than great job, you know. And I thought the contrast
consultant gig to become a master of obfuscation.
Oh man,
it's not just watered down. It's actually almost inverted. It really is. And I just thought it was an interesting little sign of the times.
You know, this gave me a flashback because I once worked for a public school district, and I got called into I worked in administration. I got called into the superintendent's office, and the assistant superintendent, kind of for discipline, is sitting next to him. And the superintendent, who's an affable guy, talked for about 20 minutes. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And so I finally said, I looked at the assistant superintendent and I said, could you just clarify what he's saying for me? And he goes, "You're fired."
Oh, well.
And I said, "Thank you.
Thank you.
I had no,
Thank you.
I had no
Thank you
idea what was going on until this moment."
So is that what Super Nintendo Chalmers told you?
Oh man, I'm glad to know.
Thank you, Super Nintendo Chalmers.
I didn't read the Steve Harvey story because I don't read a whole lot of celebrity news, but based on the headlines, the impression was that he'd gone, the full Diana Ross, "Don't look at me" pearls.
Okay.
I'm glad to know that isn't true, because Steve Harvey seems like maybe one of the few genuine guys in Hollywood. I hope that's true.
So the real point of the story is that a guy who's posing at least as an HR expert is basically saying, you millennial people, you don't need to change to adapt to the workplace. The workplace needs to figure out how to talk to you so as not to ruffle your feathers.
Yeah,
Right.
a good
And
firing is all these kids need.
Well, they wouldn't be fired. They'd be promoted to a non-working environment is what would happen to them.
Paycheck receiving environment.
That's right. But it's not just that. It's a bit like the George Carlin thing on how language, especially with this generation, has now become so muted and I don't want to say politically correct exactly, just infantilized, that you can't say, "Hey, I'm pretty pissed off about this, and this is going to stop. And if it doesn't stop, people are going to be fired. What part of this don't you understand? I've warned you, and now I'm telling you this is where we are." No, you can't do that because that's clear, and it's urgent.
Well, Bill, they've never been talked to that way. I mean, they've been
No,
raised, and I'm not saying all of them. Please, if you're in that age group, understand that. Frankly, I think that the guy who's the HR consultant is probably going overboard on this thing, that the vast majority of people in this new generation don't need to be babied like that. I've
Not sure about that, but good.
Well, I've run into a lot of really solid young people, so I don't think you have to do that. But the perception is, especially among the, what do they call that, the baby boomer generation, is that we have to coddle these kids, and we're carrying it all the way through to its, fruition in adulthood. When they were kids, you could get scowled at by another parent if you suggested that your child might be disciplined. Yesterday, I had a customer in my store who looked at his child and said, "If you don't stop doing that, you're going to get a spanking." And I didn't flinch because I thought, well, I would have gotten a spanking.
And that's why you're well-behaved and a decent person.
But it was shocking to hear it publicly now.
But it's kind of also the same thing about, that's actually a good point. Maybe I'll let you bring that up because I'd like to tie that in. It goes to discipline and it goes to the disciplining of this generation. The reason they have so many temper tantrums and this whole social justice warrior thing and all the rest of it is because they've never been disciplined. And when people say discipline, well, of course we disciplined them. We sat them down and we talked to them and we gave them a timeout and we explained to them and this and that. And they never listened. They did it anyway. And I realized that discipline is the infliction of pain to prevent behaviors that are destructive to you. And the whole idea of it is it's not sadistic to cause a little bit of pain in a kid in order so that they don't suffer enormous and grievous bodily injury. You ran across the street, you're going to get spanked, and this little pain of spanking hopefully will remind you not to walk out in front of a bus, which will hurt a lot more than the spanking will. And I don't know why this is so hard for people, but it is. And I don't know. I've heard a lot of psychologists say spanking does much more harm than good, but I've never met a decent person that was not spanked moderately.
Yeah, not abuse.
4 or 5 times a day.
I've had to swat my kids on the bottom a few times, not more than that. I mean an actual swat. None of this torture business of go get the belt and bring it forth to me.
50 Shades of Discipline.
Nothing
Richard
like
Pryor
that.
did. Richard Pryor did that about having to go cut his own switch.
But only when the child is throwing such a tantrum, or the situation is so immediate and dire that nothing else will do. When there's either you can't do it because the child is throwing a tantrum, or there's no time for it because yes, that bus is barreling down the street.
I actually thought about doing a celebrity trifecta because, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Because
they can pull this show if you say that word.
No, because the Cosby thing is just astonishing.
Oh, yeah.
It was a 6-minute close. The defense, basically, the lawyer said, all right, so I screwed up the case, but hold that against me and not against my client.
Don't blame me. They called one defense witness.
I'm wondering if he's actually intentionally setting it up for a mistrial so that we can prolong this process until Cosby.
I'll tell you, they should have called to the witness stand for the defense that Cliff Huxtable. He's a really likable guy.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's a catastrophe.
Anyway,
that's it for me.
So anyway, those are Bill's 2 shows this week. Looking forward to those. I like it when we get into some of the cultural stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
It's not all politics all the time, but I'll completely screw up that with my episode. Anyway, Stephen Green, what topic would you like to bandy about this week?
Sorry, I need to pull this up because I just forgot her name. I know it's not Maggie Haberman. It's Margaret Sullivan, who used to be the ombudsman for the New York Times, their so-called public editor, is now writing a column for the Washington Post. And I know I've just said so many bad words that people are probably turning off already. But she actually,
we'll bleep those.
But she actually had a really good point, saying that if you're complaining about the negative Trump coverage, you're missing the point. And, they did this study that I think it's 90% of the coverage of Trump in the first 3 months of his administration was extremely negative. If you read the major papers, that's all you get is Trump, 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 evil, 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 evil. And her point is that say what you will about the president. This is her now. He continues to have one thing dead right. Donald Trump is a ratings machine. Thus, homepages of news organizations or hour upon hour of cable news are relentlessly focused on the president, and this is the key here, not always because of solid newsworthiness. So here you have somebody, who sat at the New York Times ivory tower and now does this with the Washington Post, saying that chasing the advertiser dollars, chasing the page views is distorting coverage of the most important story that can be, which is a reformist president.
He's a nonstop NASCAR race. I mean, there are a lot of people who watch NASCAR because of, they know the drivers and the art of the race and all that kind of stuff, the science of the teams that put those cars together. But a lot of people watch it because there's cars going real fast that might lose control. And that's the sense that you get with this president, that at any given moment he's going to do something unexpected and you'd hate to miss it.
Yeah, but mostly I want to talk about the press and what it is doing to itself at a level I don't think we've ever seen before. Not even against Bush in 2005, 2006. At least they had to wait for something like Katrina to come along to unfairly slam him with.
Yeah, the nice thing about getting out of if they're doing for advertising dollars, the entire television market is just going away. It's not just collapsing. I mean, it's just coming to an end. No one watches it anymore. It'd be nice to think that they don't have to. And you know what else? The whole idea of 24-hour news is a bad idea. I thought it was a good idea at first, but it's a bad idea because that means they have to fill something 24 hours a day, and they can't say, here's a couple of minor stories that you're not going to be much too interested in. So everything has to be going on all the time, and if we don't have something big, we got to make it big, and if the ratings are important, then we have to make it bigger, and that's not really news, in my opinion.
There was KYW News Radio in Philadelphia, which has been doing news radio for decades now, probably 60 years, 70 years maybe, I don't know. Anyway, they used to have this slogan, which I thought was genius, because when you have a 24-hour news channel, you do have that sense that everything's being recycled. So they always pitched it as, KYW News Radio, you give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world. And I think that's what it really is. Like CNN isn't a 24-hour news channel, it's a 22-minute news channel. And,
that's right.
And so you've got to.
That's right.
You've just got to refill 22 minutes every half hour.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's exhausting
Anyway.
just to think about it.
Well, that should be
Hooray.
fun. So this is a pop quiz for my colleagues here. How many remember the name Jamie Gorelick?
Oh, I thought it was Gorlick.
There's a Gorelick of the Clinton administration. This is Jamie Gorelick was the deputy attorney general during the Clinton administration. And I don't want to get into too much of the controversy over her back then, but there's a big story, I believe, in the Washington Post about how Jamie Gorelick is now, as an attorney, representing Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner, okay? Ivanka Trump Kushner. And the fascinating thing about this is that Jamie Gorelick, in her spare time, is a liberal political activist, actively working against the goals of the Trump administration. However, in her job, she takes on clients without regard to political affiliation. And the fascinating thing about the whole story for me was how the left is treating Jamie Gorelick. She's the sellout. She's the one who's trying to promote the Republican agenda now because she's taken on this client that she treats, tries to treat in basically she's looking at it as a fairness and legality issue, and she just wants to defend her client. And I just thought, is there anybody that the left will not eat alive if you don't toe the line?
No.
There is not anybody.
So here's
There,
this.
we've done your segment.
Yeah, and that was, she was like this. I know that I used to always hear talk radio hosts raving about Jamie Gorelick and the wall between the intelligence agencies and all this kind of stuff. And so she was this sort of, what is the word? It's not bugaboo, it's not bugbear. What's the term? She was boogeyman? No.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Whatever.
Yeah. So she was this sort of evil person from the perspective of the right. And here she is basically doing her job defending Jared and Ivanka, and they are crucifying her. So, it's like, is it possible to approach anything without the taint of politics? Is it possible?
Yes,
How
unless
does she
you're a
keep
leftist.
how does she keep those two worlds separate? How does she go like, I'm going to clock out and then I'm going to go and work against the Trump administration, clock back in and, chat up Ivanka on the phone and say, here's what's going on with your case?
Well,
I don't think she was expecting it. They're never expecting it, the blowback that they get, or else they wouldn't do it. She doesn't have any friends now.
Yeah.
Tragedy.
And how do we do it? How does anybody do it in our real lives? Republicans have friends who are Democrats. Democrats have friends who are Republicans, who have friends that are libertarians or anarchists or whatever. And we get along in real life. We do that. We're Americans. We're really shockingly good at it, probably better than anybody else in the world. And yet, when you reach a certain level of progressivism, forget about it. It is the most jealous God in the world.
Yeah, and that's well said. And they won't let it drop. I can't tell you how many times I've been to parties with people out here in LA where everybody's liberal. I go into to a party or football game. I don't say boo about politics, and they won't let it go.
Yeah.
Poke, 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 poke.
There's a friend of mine at work who just transferred to another department at work, and I really miss him. He's a great guy. But when he was in our department, he'd be looking at his cell phone. He goes, "Oh, look what your boy did this time." And I'm like, "Who are you talking about?" He's like, he was always talking about President Trump. And it's like, look what your boy did this time. I said, well, first of all, he wasn't my boy.
No.
But
To say the least.
Yeah, but secondly, he's president of the United States now. And if you think you're going to get me, blindly trying to defend everything he does, that's not going to happen. But what Bill said is true. He could not let it go. And he kept telling me about, like, hey, did you see what Alex Jones said? I said, I've never watched Alex Jones.
I haven't either.
Not
the heck
gonna
is
start
that?
now. He's going to be
That's
on
right. You're
Megyn Kelly on
responsible.
Sunday.
You're responsible for it. That's what it is. Since they can't attack Trump, they have to attack you, and it's an emotional response. It's like this Julius Caesar thing where they're stabbing Trump to death in the thing, or Kathy Griffith with the decapitation thing. It's like they're so emotional and they're so incapable of dealing with any of these things that they just act out. They're like little kids. It's your fault. Well, Trump did. You supported Trump, so how come? How do? Since I can't attack Trump, I'm going to attack you.
I love Kathy Griffin trying to play the victim card after holding up the bloody decapitated head of
He
the president.
broke me.
I mean, you
He
look at
broke
that
me.
picture, and if you have any confusion about who the victim is, wow, are you dumb?
Yeah. I have to show you a picture. I was going to run with it. I was going to post it on Facebook, but I was advised not to. But I'm going to send it to you guys.
I cannot. When that picture kept showing up in my Facebook feed, I could not bear to look at that picture. I mean, it was just, even though I know it's fake, every time I came up, I was just like, scroll faster, scroll faster. I was so,
No, she was.
Well, you're just defending your boy, Scott.
Trump broke me. It's like, I think it's possible that she thinks, I suspect the whole thing's just a publicity stunt, but it's possible that she thinks that Donald Trump authorized and basically said, somebody go get Kathy Griffin. Donald Trump didn't say boo to people about going to get Kathy Griffin. We went and got Kathy Griffin on our own dime.
Well, no one rid me of this meddlesome D-lister.
Well, now, as Bill has suggested here, a whole new vista has opened up for us at BillWhittle.com. We're now doing children's programming as we talk about the leftist reaction to anybody who doesn't toe the line here. It is infantilism, as Bill pointed out. We will be recording these shows for you tomorrow and distributing them throughout the week. And then what you do, not only by your contributing to support BillWhittle.com, but then you become a redistributor of these programs as you share them and like them and send emails to people with links to those videos and invite people to become members of BillWhittle.com.
Hang on, before you guys go. Before you go, keep talking.
No,
I'm going to send this to you so you can react to it on the air.
We never stop. We never turn the cameras off here. I don't know what Bill's talking about. We just kind of clip out one section of the 24 hours we spend looking into these cameras. But that sharing activity that you do is probably at least as important as the money that you send, because that helps to generate more memberships and more people that make it possible for us to continue. And it's a virtuous cycle of capitalism. We love it.
Check your phones.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Do I have to look at this?
Yeah.
I will not react. I will not make it. Did you text it or email it?
I did.
Oh, there it just popped up in my text message thing.
All right, I'll send it to send it to Mark, and members only will get this.
That ain't right.
No, it's really.
And frankly, that could be any number of celebrities that I can think of.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll send it to our guys, and members will get to watch it. But then I don't think I'll go with it.
Yeah, that's probably not. Yeah, you'll be the hater next.
All right.
Trump is out to get you. So, ladies and gentlemen,
broke me.
That's right. So we are going to get our noses back on the grindstone and get your shows ready for this week. We appreciate your support. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. And for the crew at Right Angle at BillWhittle.com, we thank you for your support.